and welcome back, or welcome if you are new here. This is the first video on this channel of my face, so that's exciting. I am here today to talk to you about all of the books that I read in 2019. If you would like to skip directly to my talking about those books, please go to the time code on the screen, and otherwise let me explain myself a little bit. Hi, hello, I am entering myself onto BookTube. Hello. So the reason that I am talking about the books that I read throughout the entire year instead of, a month or something more normal in BookTube terms is because I read very slowly. That's really it. I read slowly. I don't read a huge amount. I did a really fantastic job of reading, for myself, for my personal goals in 2019. I'm feeling really good about it. I want to talk about these books, and I want to, make BookTube content. So we're gonna start here, and I've got a couple of other BookTube videos lined up. I hope you are excited for that. And I guess that's it. Let's get into the books. Oh, the last thing I wanted to say, unless specifically stated otherwise, every single book that I'm about to mention, I listened to the audiobook of, and I borrowed that audiobook from my local library. I love reading physical books, but I have a toddler, so reading physical books is somewhat challenging, especially for someone who reads very slowly. First and foremost, we have the most awkward addition to this list, and the worst possible place to start this video, Eleanor and Park by Rainbow Rowell. I'm not going to say anything about this book. Rainbow Rowell is a problem, and if you would like to know more, please go and watch Read with Sarah. That's the channel. Please go and watch this video by Read with Sarah. She does a fantastic breakdown of the problems with this book. I don't want to say anything more about it. Oh, I guess I should also say that these are not perfectly in chronological order. Where I have read multiple books in a series, I've sort of put them together, so it's mostly chronological, but that's not important. Next up, we have Ahsoka by E.K. Johnson. This is a book that I do actually own a physical copy of, and I read most of it in the physical copy, but it took me a really long time because I was having a very difficult time getting into the story. This follows the character of Ahsoka from Star Wars universe immediately after, what is it? Is it Order 66? I think it's Order 66. And just she's going to a planet and she's trying to figure out what she's going to do next with her life. That's pretty much the story. The audiobook is excellent. There are sound effects, and it is narrated by the Ahsoka voice actor from the television series, and it is really, really good and really engaging. I kind of wish that I had just listened to the audiobook from the get-go instead of trying to read it in physical format, because the audiobook was a blast. Next up, we have Sourdough by Robin Sloan, which is a book that I have a very difficult time describing. It is science fiction in the loosest, most tangential sense. Bear with me. This story follows Lois, who is a software engineer and has just moved to San Francisco from the Midwest. She is a recent college graduate, and this is a coming-of-age story, not in sort of a teenage or early 20s sense, but in that post-university, finding your career path and what you want to be doing with your life sense. Anyway, Lois has just moved to California. She doesn't know anyone. She's got this great job, but she's working all of the time and quickly approaching a burnout scenario. She's not taking care of herself. And then one night she discovers a takeout place that serves soup and sandwiches, and that's it. There's no description. I think it's all vegetarian food, but it's a soup and it's a sandwich, and if you get the soup, you get a hunk of sourdough bread with it, and the food changes her entire life. It's a very cute story. It's a love letter to bread and California, and it ends in this bizarre, whimsical place that defies explanation. Moving on, I read Valiant, the second book in the Modern Fairy Tale series by Holly Black. It was good. It was fine. For anyone unfamiliar, this is in the same universe as the Folk of the Air series and Darkest Part of the Forest. I prefer the Folk of the Air series, and Darkest Part of the Forest is one of my favorite books of all time. So I enjoyed this a lot. I love Holly Black's writing in general, but this is not a favorite of mine. It was just enjoyable and good. Speaking of Holly Black and the Folk of the Air series, I also read Wicked King, which I own a physical copy of, but I didn't read anything from that physical copy. I only listened to the audiobook. This was an experience. Did I like Cruel Prince more? I think I might have liked Cruel Prince more because Jude had more opportunities to be Jude. Not that she didn't have opportunities to be Jude here, but like the relationship between her and Carden at times makes me feel very awkward and uncomfortable. Like, no judgment to anyone, it's just, for me, like, it just made me feel a little bit uncomfortable, but holy crap, the ending to this book. I'm very excited to read Queen of Nothing whenever I get around to it this year. I also read Warcross by Marie Lu. I'm not gonna say that this was written well, exactly, but I enjoyed it a whole lot. It was really fun. It's a very fun, sort of light science fiction read. How did I describe this? So let's say the plot of a book is like you're driving down a road, right? Sometimes you can't see the road ahead of you. You don't know what's coming. And sometimes you can. Sometimes you're on a road trip in the Midwest of the United States and the road is straighter than straight. You can see that road for like 5 miles out. You know exactly where it is going. You can see an intersection like 3 miles up ahead with like a stop sign. Why you would have a stop sign out in the middle of nowhere where you can see for days, who knows, but you know that it's coming. But you are on this road trip with some of your best friends and the weather is gorgeous and the music on the radio is spectacular. So it is like this beautiful, extremely enjoyable ride and you know exactly where you are going. That's what reading this book was like. Speaking of things I enjoyed so much, I read The Golden Tower, the 5th and final installment in the Magisterium series by Holly Black and Cassandra Clare. Holy crap! This was so good. This is my favorite installment in the Magisterium series, which is one of my favorite series of all time. I love it so much. I loved this book so much. I particularly have a weakness for when side characters break the fourth wall a little bit and address the fact that they're side characters, and especially address like main characters doing ridiculous main character things. I am weak for that, and this has a couple of scenes where there's a side character being like,
"Are you serious? You're doing this nonsense? No wonder you're always on the brink of dying. You're always running into danger and doing this ridiculous stuff. Why are you this way?"
Same! These are a bunch of children. Why are they doing this? I love it. I should really have checked how to pronounce this name before I opened my mouth. That is Akatowicz by Nnedi Okorafor. This book was amazing and I highly recommend it. Not that I need to recommend it to anyone, like everyone in the world has already read it and knows it's amazing, but it was so good. I loved the world building, I loved the magic system, it was fascinating, and I just enjoyed so much that like they asked questions like, wait, why do we have to deal with that? Why can't the grown-ups go and deal with this life-threatening situation? Why do we have to do it? And then their teacher is just like, well, you gotta, sorry. You thought I loved those books, just wait. I dove head first into the Shauna Maguire universe, beginning with Every Heart a Doorway, the first installment in the Wayward Children series. I read this, it changed my life, and I like very quickly thereafter read Down Among the Sticks and Bones, Beneath the Sugar Sky, which I have a physical copy of, and it looks gorgeous with my hair. I know that sounds incredibly dramatic, but discovering that Shauna Maguire like exists really has changed my life. I also read Pumpkinheads by Rainbow Rowell, which we're not going to talk about because Rainbow Rowell is terrible. Now, speaking of diving headfirst into Shauna Maguire, what is the logical progression of reading once you discover that Shauna Maguire is an author who is amazing and you want to read more of her work? That's right, Parasite, the first book in the Parasitology trilogy. This is under the pen name Mira Grant. It is science fiction. I love science fiction. I am like a huge science fiction fan, and discovering that Shauna Maguire wrote science fiction, I like immediately went there instead of reading any of her other fantasy works. I have some thoughts about Parasite. I'm not going to talk too much about it now because I would actually like to do a separate video talking about it, but I enjoyed it enough to move on to Symbiont, which is the second book in the series. I also read a couple of comics. These are Wraith by Vera Greentea. I have House of Wicked Creatures and The Psychic and the Poet. I picked these up at a small press event. These are sort of, they're not independently published, but they're like a small time publishing company, and they're really cute. The artwork is so cute. This is about an abandoned house out in the middle of the woods that a whole bunch of little woodland creatures live in. I can grammar. Primarily features a couple of squirrels. For those that don't know, squirrels are my favorite animal. I'm mildly obsessed. From the art style and like the way that they're sort of visually represented, they seem like they're gonna be spooky. They're really not. They're very cute. I hate the word spoopy, but I think that's the best way to describe these. They're not scary. I also finally finished A Gathering of Shadows by Victoria Schwab. This is the second book in the Shades of Magic trilogy. I liked it. I'm hesitant to say that it suffered sort of second book syndrome so much as there are things that the characters focus on that I'm not into. Like Kel mooning over Lila. Whatever, I guess, she's amazing, who wouldn't? But then Lila wasting page time mooning over Kel, like, you have much more important things going on in your life. You really want to waste time thinking about Kel? But once we got to the competition that takes place in the story, I absolutely loved that. I loved the description. It's very action-packed. It was a whole lot of fun. Also the flashes to White London. Feelings, terror. Very excited to see what happens in Conjuring of Light. Okay, I have to breathe. Next, I read Slay by Brittany Morris. This is a debut novel. This is, again, a sort of light science fiction. It reads mostly as contemporary, but it is set in near future place. The technology that is available in this book does not exist, which is unfortunate because it would be really cool. How do I describe Slay? It is amazing. Just read it. Slay features our main character of Kira, who is a high school student. She is one of a very small group of Black students in a predominantly white private school. She is described as feeling kind of lost and wanting a place to explore her identity as a young Black woman. So she has created an online video game called Slay. The video game is a safe space for Black people to come and explore their identity. Unfortunately, there is an incident where a young person is killed over an in-game dispute, and then this video game, which was very underground and indie, is suddenly thrust into the spotlight and everyone is talking about it. Everyone is trying to figure out who the developer is, and drama ensues. I really struggle to put into words how beautiful this story is. And last but certainly not least, I have finally read The Diviners by Libba Bray, and I loved it so much that I went and immediately read Lair of Dreams. So the only thing I really want to mention with Diviners and Lair of Dreams is, like, I've known about Diviners for a long time. Everyone on BookTube has known about Diviners. Everyone on BookTube has read it and talked about it years ago before I started paying attention. And yet, it has taken me so long to actually read the books, because there's a very key descriptor that no one has used that I think is very accurate for these books, and that is eldritch horror. I didn't find either of these books particularly scary. There are parts, certainly, that are suspenseful and intense and very enjoyable in that way, but they're not like scary horror, but they are eldritch or cosmic horror is the other term sometimes associated for this genre. And by that, I mean reading Diviners was like playing the board game Arkham Horror. It felt like that so much. It was like you took the characters from Gossip Girl and put them in Arkham Horror, and it was amazing. I would have read this so much sooner if someone had described these books to me as being eldritch horror. And that was all of the books that I read in 2019. As you can see, I didn't read a whole lot when compared with like other people on the internet, but I'm very pleased with the books that I did read, and I wanted to share those with you. This video is part 1 of 2 that will be wrapping up my reading experience for 2019. Please stay tuned for the second part of this thing, probably next week. And until then, let me know down in the comments if you have read any of the books that I talked about here, what your thoughts are, and that's pretty much it. Thank you so very much for watching, and I will talk to you all later.